So today we're going to talk about something that gets every trader, discipline. But we're going to explore a completely different way to fix it, an approach that kind of sidesteps willpower altogether and uses something much, much smaller and way more powerful.
All right, let's just get right into it, because this is a question every single one of us is asked. You've got the perfect plan, right? You know, all the rules. You swear to yourself this time is going to be different, and then, in the heat of the moment, poof, it all just goes out the window. Why does that keep happening?
Well, here's the thing. It's not because you're weak or lazy. Not at all. The real issue is that you're trying to win a massive psychological war against yourself, right there in the middle of a training session. You're actually fighting your own biology, which is hardwired to resist big, scary changes. To your brain, that kind of sudden shift feels like a threat, and it pushes back. And that leads us straight into what this is all about, the trader's willpower trap. And to really get it, let's look at the story of a trader named Nathan. His whole experience, well, it might feel a little too familiar for some of us. So get this, for 7 years, Nathan knew the playbook. Cut your losses, don't overtrade, stay objective. He knew it all. But his account was a total roller coaster. He'd be super disciplined for weeks, and then one crazy volatile gold session would trigger a loss, and bam, all the old habits would just come rushing back. The revenge trading, the FOMO clicks, the random trades just because he was bored. It was this constant, exhausting cycle of trying, breaking, feeling awful about it, and then starting all over again with nothing but grit. So after one really brutal loss, Nathan finally calls up a friend of his who's consistently profitable, just looking for some kind of answer. And this is the advice he got. It wasn't some new indicator or a grand system. It was basically a warning that the real solution was going to feel ridiculously, almost insultingly small. And that brings us to the very heart of this entire strategy. A solution that starts with a single, tiny, and, let's be honest, almost laughable action. The whole method is based on Kaizen, the art of continuous improvement through these little micro changes. Now, what's really important here is the last part of this slide. So small, your brain doesn't trigger an alarm. That's the secret sauce. Instead of trying to force some huge change that your nervous system immediately fights against, you introduce a change so tiny that it just flies right under the radar. So this was Nathan's first assignment. After every single loss, he had to get up from his desk and take just one sip of water. He actually laughed when he heard it, right? But the point wasn't hydration. The whole point, the crucial thing, was that this tiny little action was designed to do one thing: create a gap. Just a small pause between the emotional trigger of a loss and the impulsive, destructive action of revenge trading. And the instructions were clear. Do this and only this for 2 weeks straight. No other changes, no trying to optimize it. The goal wasn't to fix his trading overnight. The goal was to build a single piece of evidence, day after day, that he was the kind of person who could actually keep a promise to himself. It was about rewriting his own identity, one sip at a time. So after those 14 days, something had shifted. He wasn't perfect, but that hair trigger reflex to immediately jump back in after a loss, it was weaker. He'd proven something to himself. And that's when it clicked that this one small habit was really a gateway to a much deeper, much more powerful philosophy for trading. Let's dig into how this one habit builds into a complete philosophy. First up is Ikigai, your reason for being. Most traders say they trade to make money, but Ikigai asks you to go deeper. What is the life that you want that money to build? When your focus shifts from "I have to win this one trade" to "I am building a life of freedom," a single loss stops feeling like this huge personal failure. It just becomes one data point on a much longer journey. Next is Hara Hachi Bu, and this is a brilliant way to think about managing your emotions during the day. Think about it. Most accounts aren't blown on the first trade. They're blown on the 5th or the 10th when you're overconfident and your focus is totally shot. This means you set a hard limit, like say 3 trades max, and you walk away while you still feel sharp. You stop before you're full of emotion and euphoria. Then there's Wabi-sabi, which is basically just giving yourself permission to be human. Look, you're going to have bad days. You will break a rule at some point. The real mistake isn't the slip-up. It's letting one bad trade turn into a bad day, and then letting that bad day convince you to just quit for a whole month. The goal is just to shorten your recovery time from hours down to minutes. And finally, Gambaru. Now, this isn't about hustling or trying harder. It's really about not disappearing. On those days when you're tired or unmotivated or you're just not feeling it, you don't have to force yourself to trade perfectly. You just have to show up. Open your charts, review your plan, You just do the absolute bare minimum so that you don't lose that forward momentum. So, what does this all look like in the real world, in the heat of the moment? Let's contrast those old, destructive impulses with these new, tiny, intentional actions. This slide just puts it all together so well. Look at the pattern here. After a loss, instead of mashing buttons to get it back, you just stand up for 10 seconds. In a wild, fast market, instead of that FOMO click, you just count to 5. Feeling bored? Instead of a random gamble, you just reread your written plan. Each one of these interventions is tiny, it's physical, and it's 100% achievable. It doesn't fight the emotion, it just creates enough friction to break the impulse. Okay, so this is where it all gets real. You've seen the philosophy, you've seen the examples. Now let's lay out your own 14-day Kaizen plan. And I promise you, it is incredibly simple. There are only 3 rules here. That's it. First, you choose one thing you want to change. Not 5 things, just one. Second, you make the action so small it's almost funny. So small that it feels more difficult to not do it. And third, you commit to that one tiny action for 14 days straight. No excuses, no changes, no improvements. The only goal is consistency. And you have to track it. A simple grid on a piece of paper with 14 little boxes you can check off. Now here's the really cool part, the brain hack part of this. As a trader, you get those dopamine hits from the randomness of the market, right? This gives you a new source. You get a clean, reliable hit of dopamine every time you check that box. You start to crave the feeling of control and progress, not the feeling of just getting lucky. So, at the end of the day, the crucial point is this. The objective here isn't to become some flawless trading machine overnight. It's a much more human and much more achievable goal. It's to simply become a person who engages in a little less self-sabotage today than they did yesterday. This is all about self-preservation, not perfection. And this quote just sums the whole thing up perfectly. The market doesn't always reward the smartest or the fastest trader. It rewards the survivor. It rewards the person who can just stay in the game long enough for all those tiny 1-degree shifts to compound into massive, massive strength. So, to wrap this all up, I'll leave you with this question. Forget about trying to overhaul your entire strategy. Just think about tomorrow. What is the one single, ridiculously small action you will commit to starting tomorrow to begin building that new identity for yourself?